Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Beaumont's regular City Council meeting of Tuesday, March 23rd. As always, we are pleased to be here today on the traditional territory of Treaty 6. We acknowledge all those who share a deep connection with this land. The City of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and cultures of all of Canada's First Peoples, whether they be of First Nation, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continues to enrich Canada's vibrant communities. We are all treaty people. Just before we get going with the agenda, we do have two proclamations tonight and getting some feedback from somebody. So just a quick reminder, if you're not on, put yourself on mute, please.
Sure.
Two proclamations tonight. First one is National Safe Digging Month, April 2021. Whereas each year the integrity of Alberta's underground infrastructure is jeopardized by damage during ground disturbance activities caused by those who fail to call or click before you dig. And whereas the consequences of damage to buried facilities can include service disruptions, environmental contamination, property damage, and personal injury, and even death. And whereas the Alberta Common Ground Alliance and its members promote the principles of damage prevention best practices, including the need to call or click before you dig. And whereas ground disturbers, including contractors, homeowners, and landowners, can save time and money and keep our province safe and connected by following damage prevention best practices, including making that simple call to Alberta One Call. And whereas the stakeholders in the buried facility damage prevention process, the digging community, buried facility owners, operators, buried facility locators, regulatory agencies, training organizations, and the One Call Center all agree that the prevention of damage to buried facilities is a shared responsibility. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor John Stewart, do hereby proclaim April 2021 as National Safe Digging Month in the City of Beaumont, Alberta, dated this 22nd day of March 2021. And we also have the proclamation for Earth Hour on March 27th, 2021 from 8:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. Whereas our nation's use of energy continues to increase, resulting in detrimental effects on the world's climate, and whereas it has been estimated that turning non-essential lights out in Canada for 1 hour could save as much as 15% of the energy consumed on an average Saturday night, and whereas the energy savings will reduce carbon emissions into our air, preserve the natural resources used to produce this energy, set a positive precedent for the rest of the nation, and result in ongoing reduced costs for the community, taxpayers, and businesses of the City of Beaumont. And whereas participation in Earth Hour 2021 will provide the residents of the City of Beaumont with insight into the impact of lights on energy consumption and raise community awareness on the need to conserve energy whenever possible. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor John Stewart, do hereby proclaim March 27th, 2021 from 8:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. as Earth Hour in the City of Beaumont, Alberta, dated this 23rd day of March, 2021. So pleased to do that today. Next up on the agenda is adoption of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? Ms. Winter?
Thank you, Your Worship. Administration doesn't have any amendments to the agenda this evening. Thank you.
Very good. Can I get a member of council willing to move that we adopt the agenda as presented? Councilor Hendricks? So moved. Thank you.
So moved.
All in favor? That carries unanimously. We have two items on the proposed consent agenda this evening. I move that council consent to approve the following agenda items without debate. Item 5A, regular council meeting minutes of March 9th, 2021, and item 5B, regular committee of the whole meeting minutes, March 16th, 2021. Call the question. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Which brings us to item 4, the open forum. There are no members of the public wishing to address council this evening. We have no public hearings. We have no registered presentations, which brings us to item 8A, letter of support for the Beaumont Minor Football Association Fieldhouse project. Mr. Suter.
Thank you, Your Worship, and members of council. Good evening. Topic tonight is a letter of support request from the Beaumont Minor Football Association for their Fieldhouse project. And the recommendation we're seeking tonight is the council direct administration to draft a letter of support for the Beaumont Minor Football Association Fieldhouse project. A little background on this. The BMFA approached administration in 2020 with the intention of discussing the possibility of a field house to be built in and around Four Seasons Park, which would support their program. The intention of their project would be the design, fundraising, and construction of a field house for future use by their association, as well as potentially other groups such as the Composite High School and other groups in the community. The building would be used as a clubhouse, also used for meetings, storage, and locker rooms. The intention then would be that this building, once they raise the funds and is constructed, it would potentially be turned over to the City of Beaumont to operate. And they would just ask that they retain naming rights as part of that agreement. We reviewed the concept and potential sites for this opportunity and recommended the north end of the multi-use field that we're going to be constructing this year. There's a parcel that we've allocated for this this opportunity for this clubhouse, which is city-owned land. The Football Association appeared before Council February 23rd, 2021, and did a presentation on this project. And the administration was directed as a result of that presentation to work with the association to prepare a memorandum of understanding on this opportunity. And at this time, that work is ongoing. There's a lot more involved in that, depending on where it goes. However, this letter of support would allow the association to begin fundraising immediately, as well as create awareness in the community for this opportunity. Administration will continue to work with them through the process as it goes along. That is it for the presentation, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Suter. Is there a member of council willing to move the motion? Looking, Councillor Danlock.
So moved, Your Worship. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Danlock moves the council direct administration to draft a letter of support for the Beaumont Minor Football Association Fieldhouse project. Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Danlock.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to say a couple things that I have been involved with this group for quite a while now. And this group of people with the Minor Football Association projecting this fieldhouse idea, they're highly motivated, they're highly organized, and I think they'll do a very good opportunity to get this up and running. If they can't do it, I'm not sure anybody else could actually do it as a user group. So I'm very excited these guys are doing this kind of project. I'm happy council can hopefully will support a letter of support for them to move forward in fundraising and see where this project ends up. I'm looking forward to see how it turns out. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Seeing no further requests to speak, call a question. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Suter. Appreciate all the work so far and that's ongoing in this project.
Thank you.
Brings us to item 8B, Council Policy C45, Investment Policy Approval. Mr. Dollar.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Good evening to you and members of council. Before council this evening is the investment policy and for council's approval. If council recalls, it was presented last week at the Committee of the Whole meeting. Based on the conversation from the Committee of the Whole meeting, there were a couple of minor edits made to the policy itself. The first being under the managed funds definitions. There was some greater clarity created within that definition. And then there was a reference to county that was removed and replaced with city in the ethics and conflict of interest section. Beyond that, the policy itself remains the same as it was last week with the Committee of the Whole conversation. And again, presented this evening for council's consideration and hopeful approval. That's all I have for this particular item, but would be happy to answer any questions council may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dollar. Appreciate the presentation. Is there a member of council willing to move the motion that council approve policy C45 investment policy as presented? Councillor Stout.
So moved, Your Worship.
Thank you. Do members of council have questions for Mr. Dollar? Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Mr. Dollar. I just want to ask a quick question about Schedule A, and just to aid my understanding that I'm actually understand what's put before me. Could you and thank you by the way for incorporating the other edits that were suggested at the last committee meeting. Could you clarify for me the difference in Schedule A between the institutional limit and the portfolio limit. I'm going to go with the institutional limit is how much we can actually hold at any one given institution in each of the categories, and that the portfolio limit is the total amount that we can hold, that the city of Beaumont can hold at all of those institutions combined. Or am I, that's my tentative understanding. Can you confirm, refute, or amplify at all?
I certainly can try, Councillor Stout. Thanks for the question. If you think about the institutional limit in a very simplistic example, if we have $10 million as the portfolio that we're going to invest, and if you think about the institutional limit, we can only invest, what the policy would say is, if you think about a Chartered One scheduled bank, we could only invest $4 million of that $10 million portfolio with a specific Chartered One bank, so TD Bank. We could only invest $4 million. But if you look at the portfolio limit of 75%, we can invest $7.5 million in a multitude of Schedule One chartered banks, as long as not one of those chartered banks goes above the 40% limit. Hopefully that helps or creates some greater clarity.
Yes, thank you. That's what I had supposed through reading through it. Okay, can I do a supplemental then? And so again, so following that down to the province of Alberta Treasury branches, which is the only provincially guaranteed financial institution you list there. So then I could have set of my hypothetical, assuming I'm Chief Finance Officer, if you can imagine such a ridiculous thing. I can have 7.5 million of my 10 million in the province of Alberta Treasury branches, but are the branches considered separate institutions? Would I only be able to have 40% in the Beaumont branch and 35% in the Leduc branch, or whatever?
Yeah, that's correct. It would be by institution itself would be the first limit. So you couldn't necessarily have $7.5 million in ATB as an institution, regardless of the branches. You could only have $4 million.
So the branches are not considered separate institutions, and there's only one in that category. The 75% portfolio limit seems a bit hypothetical, but thank you. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the clarity. It helps me understand what we're describing here, and I hope it does anybody else who's listening to this or paying attention. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's going to be a long night with that mute button. Are there further questions from members of council on the policy? Okay, open it up for discussion on the motion. Seeing no request to speak, we will call the question. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr. Dollar. Appreciate the work tonight and the work from last week leading us through this particular item. Brings us to item 8C, fair land condo mill rate taxation. Minister DeBlanco.
Thank you. Good evening to the mayor and council. Before you is a report regarding residential property tax rate applied to bare land condos. Later in 2020, in the fall, some condo associations have expressed concerns that their property owners are taxed inequitably in relation to the municipal services utilized. Administration researched past council decisions to gain understanding of past and current treatment for the assessment class of condominiums and analyzed any concerns presented by these associations. Past practice from 2002 to 2007, the then town of Beaumont did have a separate rate for these types of properties. This practice was subsequently reversed for the 2008 tax year and beyond. Regarding municipal services, public versus private property, listed below on the report are a number of services condo associations have cited as examples of services that are paid for by condo residents as part of their condo fees. Specific ones being roadway and sidewalk maintenance, including snow clearing and street sweeping, utility servicing within the condo property, such as flushing, as well as street lighting costs, electricity. It is an important distinction to be aware of that the services noted are on privately owned property rather than municipal infrastructure. These services are only performed by the municipality on city-owned assets and infrastructure, and the city does not provide these services on any privately owned property. Providing services to private assets exposes the city to increased liability, risk, and obviously operating costs. Included in the report are some summaries of the individual service levels provided to the publicly owned infrastructure. I'm not going to go through every single one. Regarding assessment and taxation as a whole, property taxes help pay for municipal services, including fire, police, road maintenance, snow removal, parks and rec services, to name a few. It's important to note that the specific amount of municipal services utilized by an individual taxpayer may vary greatly. A good examples are parks and trails. Some residents might use them greatly, others might not use them at all. Property taxes are a means of distributing the net cost of municipal services among all property owners based on their assessed property value, rather than a fee for specific services. For this reason, the rationale that some of these condo associations utilize less city services might not necessarily be accurate. Summarize this a little more simply, a property owner's tax levy does not directly pay for the infrastructure adjacent to their property. Their levy is their pro rata contribution to the overall operations of the city. From a budget financial impact, introducing a separate residential assessment subclass for condos with a lower rate may result in a shift of the overall tax burden away from condo owners and onto other non-residential and residential property owners. As part of the 2021 budget deliberations, council approved a 0% tax levy. Also, as part of these deliberations, the ratio of residential to non-residential property tax rates was discussed. And coming shortly, admin will be bringing forth a taxation policy, which will provide some further guidance and recommendations to council on the ratio. Thank you. I'm able to take any questions council may have.
Appreciate that, Mr. Blanco. Great report. Appreciate you walking us through it. Looking forward to that policy coming back in May. It's always fun stuff. So before we, just to make sure that we're all on the same page, we'll open it up to questions from members of council for Mr. Blanco. All right. Seeing none. Ooh, Councillor Daniluk.
Apologize, Mayor Stewart, for my late on the trigger there. Mr. DeBlanco, thank you for your presentation. So is it, you mentioned the back part of the request for decision here as information that we'll be getting some more information about the number of units that are bare land and what the implication may be if we chose to do a separate tax rate for them. That information will be coming back to us in May. Is that my interpretation of your information here?
Thanks for the question. Through to Councillor Daniluk, we can include that as part of the taxation policy. It wasn't necessarily admin's intent to include that, but if that's council's direction, we can include some data on those properties as well.
That'd be helpful for me. Thank you for the further discussion on this topic in May. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no further requests to speak, is there a member of council, hang on, CAO?
I just wanted to confirm that that is the wish of council and not just an individual councillor. So you could maybe, even a show of hands that you want us to bring that information back.
All right, we'll do it this way. Quick motion, Councillor Daniluk, to bring that information back, please. You're on mute.
I apologize, sorry. Yes, I'll move that motion to bring back information regarding the number of bare land condos that may be affected by a potential bare land condo tax rate for a report and review, for our review and discussion in May. Thank you.
Discussion on the motion. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, I think I understand what Councillor Danlock is looking for information, but I'm not sure that information actually belongs in a taxation policy. I'm not sure how administration might present that information.
Mr. DeBlanco, CAO, Mr. Dollar.
Thanks, Councillor Van Newkirk. I would suggest that probably the best way for us to bring back some of that information or that detail would just be in the body of the report itself. You are correct in terms of the policy. I wouldn't expect to see any of this kind of information in the draft policy, but we could put the context within the body of the report that the attachment or the policy would be attached to with.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I would support that information presented in that way. It just doesn't belong in a policy. So thank you.
Seeing no further requests to speak, call a question. All in favor? And that passes unanimously. Is there a member of council willing to move the main motion that we accept this report as information this evening? Councillor Danlock.
So moved, Your Worship. Thank you very much.
Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Dollar. Appreciate it. Sorry, Mr. DeBlanco. Appreciate the work that went into preparing that information. Brings us to City of Beaumont Welcome Services. Who will speak?
I think it's me again, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Dollar, go ahead.
Thank you. Before council this evening is administration bringing forward a request that we're hopeful council will be supportive of. Originally, there was a notice of motion from Councillor Barnhart to bring back a report on welcome services within the City of Beaumont. And that was due back to council prior to the end of Q1. Unfortunately, the administrator that was responsible for preparing the report had an unfortunate accident and is not able to complete the report prior to Q1. So we are asking council to provide administration with an extension to Q2, end of Q2 for the report. I would anticipate and hope that we wouldn't necessarily need all of that time. I know when I talked to Ms. Williston a couple of weeks ago, we were very close on getting the report put together. So my hope would be is you'd probably see the report coming back to council, hopefully sometime in May rather than June. And so again, series of unfortunate incidents in this one. And again, hopefully we can have council support in delaying this to the end of Q2. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dell. I appreciate that. So a member of council willing to move the recommendation, or we'll open up, actually, we'll do this first. We'll open it up for questions from members of council. Councilor Barnhart.
Thank you for changing your request, Mayor. I appreciate that because I'm not prepared to make that motion. I need to express some frustration. Mr. Dowler, I don't want to take it out on you. I understand the unanticipated event that occurred. However, the frustration is coming from the fact that this motion was made quite a long time ago. And it seems to me it took quite a long time to get started on putting this report together. Maybe that's not the case, but it certainly seems that way from what I've heard in the community. And I would also want to put forward that I think we're maybe making a mountain out of a molehill. What council has asked for and supported the motion was to bring back information on what is the information that we have, what is out there. I think what the administration is trying to put together appears like coming forward with a program that's already designed and perhaps going a little bit too far on that before council has had a chance to weigh in. So I am a little worried that by pushing it now, of course, we have no choice. The reason I wouldn't make this motion is it's already the end of Q1. So really there's no point in, we can't really say no, except to change the motion to say, not the end of Q2. Perhaps we want it to come back in May. And I'd like to make a friendly amendment, if that's possible, that this report come back sooner rather than later and comes back with options for council. It does, in my mind, council has lost a lot of time in being able to put any resources to even a small service, let alone a big service. What I have in my mind ranges from an option of a letter from the mayor to newcomers all the way to a full-fledged service. And I don't think any of us expect that we've made up our mind on that. It's going to depend on what the options are and what we can get for the resources we currently have. So I am frustrated, and you're hearing that in my voice. And I would hope that members of council would support this report coming back sooner than the end of Q2. Thank you.
Okay, prepared to make a motion, Councillor?
I would change the motion then to ask that the council grant a time extension for the Revitalizing Beaumont Welcome Services report from the end of Q1 2021 to the beginning, the middle, how do I say that? To May of 2021.
Okay. So discussion on the motion or further questions for admin? Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, thank you to Councillor Barnhart for expressing the frustrations. I think it's always important to share those things that are concerning you. So thank you for that. Question for administration is, Mr. Dowler, I guess, explained that the report was closer to finished than, just being begun. Is it possible to meet that timeline and still have the product quality that you were looking for, given a quicker timeline?
Thank you for that question, Councillor Van Newkirk. I think we can. I think what council will see within the report is not necessarily a recommended solution to this. It's some options. And in terms of what we can do, it's not overly complicated at all, based on my conversation with Ms. Williston a couple of weeks ago. So it's very simplistic in kind of what would be proposed or options presented. So I do think, given the timelines being suggested through the amendment, that is certainly achievable for administration.
Okay, thank you. Just a quick question for the mayor. Is it more reasonable for this report to come back to council or to come back to a committee of the whole? Because maybe if that report comes back to the May committee of the whole, that might be, a solid target date for everyone. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, actually, that's probably a good idea. You have the discussion and figure out how to dispose of this item from there. Probably a poor choice of word, dispose of, but how to deal with that item at the committee of the whole. Is that a friendly amendment, Councillor Barnhart? No?
I have one reason why that doesn't sound like a friendly amendment to me, and that is because if my calendar is correct, we don't have a lot of time together as council, and to get something done by this council before the summer, and perhaps to get something initiated, I would think we need to have it go to council sooner rather than later. So I know that doesn't mean it doesn't go to council, Councillor Van Newkirk, but I am concerned that it might take longer. So perhaps the CAO can weigh in on whether sending it to the COTW is going to make it extend that timeline for council to get it.
Yes, thank you very much, Councillor Barnhart. Absolutely, it will, because now it's got to go from a committee meeting to a regular meeting. We can't make the decision at the regular meeting. I think, as Mr. Dowler has explained, it'll be fairly straightforward, like you have alluded to. It's not that complicated. We should be able to present it at a regular meeting and get a decision.
Okay, so we'll go with the May 11th council meeting then. Further discussion on the
That
motion?
work?
Sorry, Mr. Dollar, is that going to work?
Yeah, I do believe that timeline will be achievable for administration.
Your worship, I just want to clarify the motion that Councillor Barnhart currently has on the floor. Her timeline has from Q1 2021 to May 2021. So if Councillor Barnhart wishes to change it to the May 11th, 2021 regular council meeting or leave it to May 2021.
Thank you. I would accept that suggestion. Thank you, Ms. Winter.
Thank you.
We will amend, the motion is so amended to be May 11th council meeting. Further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Seven, that carries unanimously. Brings us to item 8E, Councillor Barnhart's notice of motion, inclusion and diversity. Ms. Winter to introduce, and then the floor is yours, Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to members of council and the public. At the March 9th, 2021 regular council meeting, Councillor Barnhart made the following notice of motion that council direct administration to bring forward a report to council as soon as it is reasonable on the progress we have made and the goals we are striving to achieve on inclusion and diversity in our city. This evening, administration is looking on how council wishes to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you. Like many of my colleagues on council, the awareness that needs to be raised to improve our performance as a society around eliminating discrimination and accepting diversity. I think we need to continue to move forward on that particular portfolio. And I know that the administration has begun work and there's been plans set out in our social master plan, but I am at a loss to know exactly where we're at with this particular these particular issues. And I think council will remember the opportunity we had in October 22nd and 29th. We had two excellent workshops with HRX on diversity and inclusion. And it seems we've not revisited that at all as a council. And I'd like to know what, if anything, has transpired since then and what progress the administration has made. And that is why I have brought forward this notice of motion. And I appreciate support for that.
Thank you very much, Councillor. So we'll open it up to questions for Councillor Barnhart from members of council, and then I'm gonna look to admin to see if they're clear on what Councillor Barnhart's asking for. Councillor Mungo-Swain.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship, and thanks, Councillor Barnhart, for bringing this to the attention. I guess my question, obviously, I'm supportive of everything during the conversation that you're trying to raise awareness around. My question is, the fact that this is a notice of motion, and what are we directing administration to do versus just asking for asking for an informational item on the agenda. And I think at that point, if we didn't think we're doing enough, then there is a notice of motion that says, okay, administration, we want you to do X. So again, obviously super supportive of getting the information and all that sort of thing. I was not sure why it went through a notice of motion process. So did you have some thinking around that?
Thank you, Councillor Mungo-Swain. My only reason for putting it as a notice of motion is I didn't quite know else how to get it to council and to get that information. I suppose I could have taken an inquiry approach, but I think this gives the administration not only the time, but the importance of it. And there was an opportunity this week. I shouldn't say opportunity. There was an incident a couple of weeks ago, and I was contacted by a citizen about how she had been treated. And not by our council, or by our administration, by somewhere in the community. And that brought it to mind again. And so the reaction was, I need to find out what we're doing, what we can do more, how we can encourage people to learn more about how to be inclusive. And I do think it's education and awareness that people need. I just felt we hadn't done enough. As our term ends, I think we need to pay attention to that.
Hold up.
Yeah, and yeah, I agree, and certainly a regrettable incident, and certainly also unfortunately not isolated, and occurs throughout the city, and part of the reason why, and I know that, you know, administration also been through similar training, and you know, we do have that in our strategic plan, and you know, when we went through some of the challenges in 2020 with those conversations, you know, I certainly was asking myself around, do we just have some nice words on a paper, like what are we actually doing to get there, right? And so I agree with the premise of let's get the information, and if we got to go through the notice of motion process, then that's fine. I'm just not sure exactly, and maybe I'm more interested in the next steps. Okay, then what are we doing forward? So yeah, those are my initial comments, but appreciate it again, you raising awareness around this.
Yeah, just to speak to the process perspective, notice of motion, notice of motion, and then going forth with this putting the motion out and having a discussion is the proper way to get something on council's agenda if we want to have a more in-depth discussion about it. And so this is the route to go. Councillor Danlock.
Thank you, Your Worship. I echo Councillor McCough-Swain's comments and fully support what Councillor Barnhart is trying to achieve here with the inclusion and so on. I agree entirely. I also kind of thought, I'm not sure, should it come as a notice of motion as opposed to an inquiry. I understand Councillor Barnhart's reasoning, and I'm glad in her motion it does say as soon as reasonable, which is not going to tie down timeline too quickly. We have a chance to get this back from administration. So I am prepared to support the motion to bring back information to council on inclusion and diversity. So I'm happy with the motion, the way it's worded as being reasonable for time frame. That gives us some flexibility, which I like. So I appreciate that, Councillor Barnhart. Thank you.
Councillor Van Nieuwkerk.
Yeah, a question for administration around, I guess similar to what your thoughts were, Mayor, is, you know, does administration clear on what Councillor Barnhart's asking for? Kind of sounds to me like a report card maybe on inclusivity and diversity or such. And so that'd be the first question. Second would be, you know, are there efforts underway in some other report or item that is coming forward where that they can tag this information onto as well? Just wondering a little bit of the nuts and bolts of that process.
Yeah, I agree with you, Councillor, and I'll be honest, I've been sort of racking my brain to think about what we've been doing with our strategic plan and the social master plan, and going back through that information. And I'm aware that this work is very, very young, and I think it's worthy of discussion. I'm just not sure that we've got goals outlined within our plans that they can report on. And if not, maybe that's the better discussion, is to have council move that forward. So don't know what the answer is, but we'll open it up to CAO to hopefully weigh in a little bit here.
Sure. And thank you very much. Absolutely a very important topic. Administration has started down this journey from an organization's perspective. We did some similar training and maybe a few more in-depth things. And our goal is to put a plan in place for the organization, which will include an audit and a number of activities. As far as the community is concerned, I think that's a conversation that, one, needs to happen with council, and we need some specific direction on what those goals are. It is outlined in the strategic plan. However, there's not a lot of tasks, therefore, or resources assigned to it. We've got a golden opportunity here, and that the social master plan is in its infancy to mid stage, and we'll be coming back to council within the next couple months. Certainly we could take a shot at some of what admin thinks are goals for the community, but I would certainly look to council to weigh in and provide that direction. But I think the social master plan can provide that vehicle.
And so I'm looking to Councillor Barnhart. Perhaps maybe we're not looking for a report, we're looking for a discussion.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, CAO.
I'm just trying to get to where you want to go.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And the reason I put it on the agenda is I think we need to talk about it. And my worry would be if we put it off, if we put it in with the discussion on the master plan. There's so much in the master plan that I think this issue gets buried. And I would like to have a discussion about this issue in our community. And that's my reason why it absolutely does fit with the social master plan. And at the last meeting, I did ask for when that was coming back, and I'm pleased that it is coming back for report on all of the initiated events that we're having there. But I do think that this is a very important conversation to have in and of itself.
CEO?
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all. Going back to the social master plan, I'm told that there's strategies as part of that plan. So that could be a discussion with council. If you see that that implementation plan is not what you like it to be, then we can massage it at that point and make sure that DEI is higher up on the scale.
We don't want to debate this, I imagine here, but I would just like to have a discussion, and I think it would have to be another facilitated discussion with council on diversity and inclusion. And I really don't know how you'd like to structure that or how council would like to structure that. But it seems to me that this is not just, my motion is for a report on what we've done so far. But when we get to the stage of having a discussion, I do think we need to have some facilitation of that, just like we had when we had the training session. It's a difficult topic to talk about. And I think we'll need some help doing that. But all I'm asking for now is specific information on diversity and inclusion. What do we need to do in the administration? What have we set out to do? What do we need resources for? Just where are we at? It is a report card idea.
Okay. Councilor Goswain?
Yeah, so my thought process in hearing this discussion is that you know, Councillor Barnhart, you're trying to get the information on where we're at so that we can use that to set a plan for what we need to do to go forward. And so I think, you know, getting it, you know, maybe adjusting the motion to receiving that report as part of the social master plan, then allows us to have that conversation. Or else I think without that, we're just going to look back and say, well, how does this fit within the master plan? So I think administration's heard clearly here that we want to have that broader discussion. And then ultimately, it's probably, you know, I hate to think 6 months down the road, but ultimately it's probably the new council that needs, as part of the strategic plan, that needs to put more tangible goals in the next term's strategic plan. Because right now administration can't report back on any goals because we haven't identified anything, right? We had a nice statement in there that talked about our aspirations. So I think that would come out of the social master plan discussion. So I personally, you know, I think that there is enough room and you know, the social master plan is a big document. It's going to be probably more than one committee of the whole for us to go through that, and would absolutely agree that a facilitated conversation would, you know, for us to talk through this would be important. But so yeah, for me, I think, you know, I wouldn't want this report to come back in isolation, because then ultimately I wouldn't know what to do with it, right? I would just kind of wait for the how does this play with the overall social master plan. So my gut is let's get this report back and see what we've done, and as part of the social master plan discussion, and then from there we have a more specific conversation. But then ultimately it needs to fall into the strat plan, which then the next council is going to format. So those are my 2 cents on this.
Okay, so you're looking, just to summarize a little quickly, so you're looking to add, for all the reasons outlined, to the end of the motion on the floor, which is that council directs administration to bring forward a report to council as soon as it is reasonable on the progress we have made and the goals we're striving to achieve on inclusion and diversity in our city, in conjunction with the social master plan review or the implementation plan. Is that what you're asking?
Not my motion, clearly, but
yeah.
That's what I think would help get certainly the support from me. So okay. Yeah, I want that information. Let's bring it all back. We're not gonna, you know, sometimes I get the fear. Sometimes the master plans are such a big, large document that we don't really dive into it as much as we need to. And I think, you know, Councillor Barnhart, you're not going to let us do that. You're not going to let us skip over that, which is absolutely what we need from you. And so I think based on this conversation and what administration is hearing, that gets us to what I think what you're hoping to achieve.
And so,
I'm comfortable with that. Thank you.
yeah, I was going to say, I'm coming back to Councilor Barnhart. You're okay with that amendment and you're comfortable with that? So, okay. Further discussion on the motion. Okay, seeing none. Call the question. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Brings us to item, hey, we're clicking right along. Brings us to item 9A, bylaw 996-21, LaRive Southwest Neighborhood Structure Plan, first reading. Just as a quick reminder to council as we get in there, we'll open it up. We'll open up the floor to questions of clarity. But would ask people to refrain from making public statements on their opinion on this matter. Mr. Rates.
All right, so good evening, Your Worship, members of council and other attendees of tonight's council meeting. Administration is presenting bylaw 996-21 for council's consideration of first reading. And so just as some review, this bylaw is for a neighborhood structure plan, which provides guidance for the sequence of development proposed for a specific area within a larger area structure plan. And it outlines land uses, the density of population, and the general location of major transportation routes and public utilities. The full proposed LaRive Southwest Neighborhood Structure Plan is available on pages 53 through 97 of the agenda package. It provides planning direction for approximately the southwest quarter of the proposed LaRive area structure plan. And the land use concept for the neighborhood structure plan is available on page 56 of the agenda package. The applicant, Invistech Consulting Limited, proposes that the LaRive Southwest Neighborhood Structure Plan would facilitate the development of approximately 1,023 new dwelling units and 2,644 residents at full build-out, which is anticipated to be several years in the future. And this would eventually achieve a density for this sub-area of the plan of 36.9 dwelling units per net residential hectare. This meets the requirements of the growth plan. And the proposed land use is just a quick review within the land use concept or low and medium density residential commercial development along 50th Street and collectors within the neighborhood, and as well as municipal reserve areas, natural areas, greenways, and environmental rights of way, which provide space for school sites, programmable park spaces, and stormwater management facilities. The higher level approach to utilities and transportation are outlined within section 4 of the plan and providing guidance for the transportation network infrastructure and servicing, as well as sanitary, storm, and water servicing. Administration has worked closely with the applicant to review the plan and supporting documentation, ensuring consistency with various strategic plans that guide the City of Beaumont's growth and development. This includes regional planning documents, the municipal development plan and strategic plan, various municipal master plans, as well as the proposed LaRive area structure plan that is also being reviewed. Administration's view is that the neighborhood structure plan is consistent with the city's overall policy framework. A review period for the neighborhood structure plan was completed for internal departments and external stakeholders and agencies, area landowners, and the public. This was completed between November and December of 2020, and comments collected were shared with the applicant, and administration is of the opinion that the applicant has ensured consistency with the city's overall policy framework and is addressing concerns raised during the review period. With this in mind, administration is recommending that council give first reading to this neighborhood structure plan. And so just to outline tentative next steps, if council were to provide first reading of the NSP or the neighborhood structure plan, it would be brought back to council for second and third reading in conjunction with second and third reading for the area structure plan. And the area structure plan, of course, was brought forward back in January and is completing the regional evaluation framework process. And so the region board administration and a third-party evaluation has recommended that the area structure plan be approved. And so now the plan is going through the final part of this regional evaluation framework process, which is the appeal period where a member municipality has the opportunity to appeal this recommendation. And so this is just a regular portion of the process, and that portion of the process ends on April 8th, 2021. And so if first reading were to be passed and no appeal is filed within the Metro Board Regional Evaluation Framework process, administration would intend to bring back the area structure plan, the neighborhood structure plan on April 13th. And so this concludes administration's presentation. And so we'd be open to providing answers for any questions that members of council may have.
Okay, thank you very much. So is a member of council willing to move first reading? Councillor Stout. Open it up to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
So moved, Your Worship.
Open it up to questions on the neighborhood structure plan. Okay, Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, thank you. As we dive down from ASP to NSP, we start to get a little bit more clarity around things and, you know, where things could go in alignments and such. In section 4.3, when we're talking about active transportation network, you know, this is as close as we've got so far to the whole trails on connectivity idea. Just wondering, Mr. Rates, if you could speak to the point in time, you know, past this NSP, where we can ensure that, you know, the trails and connectivity exist and are connected. And most importantly, the question that I always ask is how we get the trail on the east side of 50th Street all the way up to Edmonton. And I look in the southeast of Beaumont. I asked a question similarly about a year and a half ago, and around the trail being on the east side of 241, and that trail in fact doesn't exist and there's not room for it now. So I don't want to be in the same spot with this. So this is a question I'm going to keep asking when I have an opportunity. So yeah, if you could speak about the trails on connectivity and how that fits in and where it starts to get a little bit more solid in the process.
So yes, through your worship to Councillor Van Newkirk. Yes, you're correct in that figure 12 would outline the active transportation network for the future. And of course, within a neighborhood structure plan, this provides the higher level guidance for servicing that would inform future decision-making as we begin to service this area and actually see development occur. And so it's during the subsequent redistricting and subdivision process where we'll see these lines on a map and then be able to ensure that they are placed in coordination with one another and being rolled out in a, rolled out in an appropriate and timely manner. I'll also note, or administration would also note that the regional pathway or regional active transportation connection that is envisioned to go north from 510 towards the city of Edmonton is within master plans at the city of Beaumont, highlighted on the west side of 50th Street. But of course, as urban development occurs, there would be active transportation connections provided throughout this neighborhood that's being built on the east side of 50th Street. So there would also be some connections placed there. And just to tie back to that original question, the placement of these facilities would be determined within that redistricting and subdivision process, which of course follows this. And we're doing this process to make sure that we've outlined exactly where these things need to go, and then through that subsequent part of the process we begin to partition it out when we start to develop land.
Awesome, thank you for that.
Councillor Stout.
Thanks, Your Worship. Through Your Worship to Mr. Rates. Just quickly, there's a couple of references in the plan to a district park and to a pocket park, but I couldn't actually find them labelled in any of the diagrams. Would I be right in thinking that the district park is the big green, marked in green municipal blob in the top right of the diagram? So I suppose that's northeast, and the
you got a page for us?
Well, let's go back to figure 12 where we were just discussing.
Which page is that?
That would be page, where's my cursor gone? 34 of the document, 72 of 113.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's a good interruption, actually. Adds clarity. So yeah, there's a municipal reserves marked in green on that particular map, as on all the others, I think. So the district park is the one in the top right-hand corner, so that's the top northeast corner. And the pocket park is the smaller park opposite end in the bottom southwest corner. Am I correct?
So through your worship to Councillor Stout, yes, this would be the correct interpretation of it. The labeling or the more distinct description of these is available within the text on page 58 of the agenda package, or between pages 55 to 58 of the agenda package. And yes, we'll note that it isn't completely clear from looking at the figure, but also from a planning perspective, we'd be looking at this in conjunction with the area structure plan, which would also label these district and pocket parks at a different scale, of course, at a higher scale, but yes, highlighted within the text and in the locations that were indicated in the question.
Great, thank you. Just I don't know, it might be worth labeling them in one of the diagrams, possibly just for clarity. But thank you, appreciate that.
Okay, Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Rates. My question is on page 35, and it's about the stormwater. Just that whole area, if I'm not mistaken, is quite wet right now. I mean, there's always a lot of water collecting there, either on the road or in the fields. It's really an area where has been an issue over the years. Does this plan address that? And I don't begin to know how to address that. I'm just asking a question. Does that have to be addressed at this stage? And is it addressed to your satisfaction?
So through your worship to Councillor Barnhart, there is the text within the plan that discusses how stormwater will be managed as the area develops and then eventually operates as an urban part of the city. And the text within the plan is supported by documentation that is created by engineers, such as a neighborhood servicing report and other similar documentation. And so this has been reviewed by our engineering expertise, and we're comfortable moving forward with the area structure plan and the neighborhood structure plan based on the schemes that are outlined within those more technical documents that don't make their way into a plan like this, but support a plan like this. So yes, we are comfortable with moving forward and continue to work with the applicant, the developer in this area, to ensure that this is built out in an appropriate way.
And just to follow up, if I may, Mayor, so the engagement that has occurred so far, anyone that owns land in that area would have a chance to, and I'm talking about specifically that area that is being redeveloped, they would have a chance to comment on that, or have had a chance.
So through your worship to Councillor Barnhart, yes, there has been a circulation period for both the area structure plan and the neighborhood structure plan, where we've been able to reach out and provide opportunity for comment from area landowners as well as neighboring property owners. And then that process is of course occurring with at the same time as internal departments and external agencies. So yes, there have been those periods.
Thank you very much.
Okay, seeing further questions? Okay, seeing none, call a question. All in favor of first reading? Councillor, okay, there we go. That carries unanimously. Like, you have a question? Appreciate that. Which brings us to, I assume Mr. Rates is hanging around for bylaw 10-01-21, the redistricting first reading. Awesome. Well, we'll go for that.
So good evening again, your worship, members of council, and everyone else attending tonight. We're presenting now bylaw 100-21 for council's consideration of first reading. This presentation, a verbal presentation, again, will be a little bit more succinct, but the land use bylaw, which controls use and development of land and buildings in Beaumont, is the document that would be amended through this bylaw. So the purpose of this proposed bylaw would be to amend the land use bylaw, redistricting portions of the proposed Larev neighborhood from their current status, which is agricultural holdings district, to both commercial and integrated neighborhood districts. So this is outlined in the schedule. That's a part of the agenda package. The commercial district is proposed for the portion of subject lands along 50th Street, intended to provide employment opportunities through various commercial and office uses. And then the integrated neighborhood district is proposed for the eastern side of the subject lands, intended to provide a variety of housing options with opportunities for local commercial and other complementary land uses, such as a stormwater management facility. Administration's view is that the redistricting proposal is consistent with the city's overall policy framework, as well as the proposed land use concept set out within both the proposed area structure plan and the proposed neighborhood structure plan. This, of course, also went through a circulation process over the course of December and January of these previous months, and the same parties being engaged again, keeping them up to date with the specific proposal that's a part of, or that is within these larger plans that are being developed. And so if council, a similar spiel as the end of the previous presentation, but if council were to approve first reading on the redistricting tonight, the redistricting would be brought forward back to council for second and third reading in conjunction with second and third reading of the area structure plan and the neighborhood structure plan. And this is, of course, contingent on first reading passing tonight, and then also the regional evaluation process completing that appeal period with any appeals. Without any appeals, we would then be intending to bring this back, all three applications or all three bylaws back on April 13th. So this again concludes our presentation, and we're open to any questions on this or on this specific application.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation and all the hard work that's gone into both the last item and this one. Is there a member of, before we open it up for questions, is there a member of council willing to move that council give first reading to bylaw 1001-21, the redistricting, a bylaw to amend bylaw 944-19, our zoning blueprint land use bylaw? Councillor Hendricks. Thank you. Questions for administration? Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Worship. Through your Worship to Mr. Rex. It took me longer than I care to admit to figure out where the maps in this last section were actually, which piece of land they were actually showing, and to reconcile the one on page 109 with the ones on 111 and 113. But I eventually got there, I think. And what's puzzling me is this. Isn't the redistricting proposal only the northern half of what we've just of the neighborhood structure plan we've just approved in the previous motion? And if that's or am I missing something completely? And if that's so, don't we also need to redistrict the southern half south of the region shown on the map on page 109?
So through your worship to Councillor Stout, the neighborhood the neighborhood structure plan can be put in place, and then portions of it can come online as the development process begins to play out. Of course, the development process is a process that's led by private development occurring in the area, and so at this point in time, the developer is prepared to move forward with this scope of redistricting, and in the future would other areas within this neighborhood structure plan would be redistricted as development opportunities come online for it.
Okay, I think I understand. So we only need to do the northern half. We only need to redistrict the northern half of the neighborhood structure plan because that's what the developer is currently proposing to develop. And if they want to, in the short term, near future.
So through your worship to Councillor Stout, yes, that would practically be the case at this point. And in the future, we would see subsequent redistricting applications coming forward that would cover other areas that are within this neighborhood structure plan and or the area structure plan overall.
Okay, thank you. So if they want the southern half, if they want to start work on the southern half, they'd have to come back to us and ask for that to be redistricted as well then.
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Stout, that would be the case. We would see a new application and the agricultural holdings district that's currently districted in that area would need to be redistricted to land use districts that align with what's outlined in the plan.
Okay, and just one last clarification then, but it doesn't make any difference to the neighborhood structure plan that some of the areas of it are not currently appropriately districted for what that plan proposes.
Yes, through your worship to Councillor Stout, the neighborhood structure plan provides the long-term planning framework that will eventually be fulfilled and built out and then operated by the municipality. And so this initial stage can occur and then subsequent stages can be brought online, and then eventually it is all built out and operated. And I'll also note that the extent of this development generally falls in line with what the staging direction is within both the neighborhood structure plan and the area structure plan. So it is the direction and scale of development that's being proposed within this redistricting aligns with what is directed for within the neighborhood and the area structure plan with regard to how the neighborhood is built out.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate the exposition there.
Okay, seeing no further questions from members of council, we will call the question on first reading. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. And which brings us to, we've been sitting now for a little over an hour and 10 minutes, so we'll take a quick 5 to 10 minute break, reconvene back here at 7:15 and carry on with the rest of the meeting. So convene our regular council meeting of Tuesday, March 23rd. Brings us to item 10, councilor inquiries and reports. Start with inquiries. Do members of council have questions for administration this evening? Councilor Montgomery.
Yeah, thanks. This is just a follow-up regarding some of the projects that we're undertaking, and we had a good discussion around the project dashboard. Well, we've noticed, well, it's been brought to my attention, some signs that have been popping up in the community about upcoming project in the area, and there's one particular one, and I don't need a specific answer on this one right now, but there's one particular one in Mayu Park, just around from Colonial School. So every third person stopped me there today as I was picking up, wondering what this great new project is. And so I just wondered if administration knew, like, is that the repair of the Colonial ball diamonds that was in there? Or was that something else, or was it put in the wrong spot? I'm just curious around that, either an answer now or just a follow-up when you have the information.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Monkoff-Swain. We're doing two things, and I have to confirm which ones are in use, so I don't have an exact answer. But if you recall, we're upgrading a number of the ball diamonds, including the shale. And we're also updating park structures. So it could be one of either of the two, but I will send out an email tomorrow and clarify. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. And it's not on the project dashboard, certainly not in that area. So just a flag for that team, if they could just throw a polygon on there for whatever it is. I I tried to get away with pushing them to the dashboard, and then the first 3 people looked it up on their phone while they were there and couldn't find it. So just again, not crucial, but just an update as people start to get excited about these projects. I just want to make sure that we set expectations around what's actually going to happen. So I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Danlock, followed by, oh, sorry, Councillor Barnhart, followed by Councillor Danlock. Unless the CAO is weighing back in on this one. I think we lost him.
He's frozen in time.
Accident information, 2 things. One is, sorry, I'm having bandwidth issues, so did I just cut
we may
somebody
just,
off?
how about we forgo your video tonight and maybe that'll help. Not that I don't want to see you, but.
All right. Can I go ahead and answer?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. As far as the dashboard, if you recall when we presented that, the operational projects are not on the dashboard, just the new projects. And I just, Emilio is referring to the drainage, which is an operational item.
Okay, and so I think I got most of that. We're just looking at an operational item. I did see that there. I didn't think that would result in a big 10-foot high sign that says exciting things happening here in Beaumont. So just maybe a bit of clarification around that. I get we're trying to communicate, we're trying to do the right thing, but people got very excited about what was coming. And if I go back and say that we're regrading it, that they might question the need for a sign. So just flagging that. And I did look on the operational dashboard because I did see it there. But if it was the ball diamonds, I thought that was a capital item. But anyway, that's just feedback.
Yeah, no, thanks. We'll clear that up tomorrow. Mr. Berezowski did send me the link that lists the operational maintenance, but I tried to hit it and it just messed up my computer. So maybe Mike, you could put that out to everyone, or I'll send it out tomorrow.
Okay. I think you hit the chat already. Councillor Barnhart, followed by Councillor Danlock.
Mine is the same issue, Mayor. So I just wanted to make sure that the administration heard that it's not just Amelia Park. Those signs are in a number of places, and I had a phone call, and I even phoned Councillor Hendricks last week to see if he knew, because there's one down by the church on the trail right below the hill. And I had the same question. I tried to find it. I don't know what that is. So I think we need to be clear about whether it's operational and let our citizens know what that means, and let us know so we can tell them.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll look into that. Thank you. Councillor
Danlock.
Thank you, Minister. I think we all got calls from various people about those signs. So at least people are watching, people are engaged. That's a good thing. Sometimes it's let's have the answer at our fingertips. Sometimes we don't, the way it goes. My question is by Mayor Stewart. As you may recall, if you noticed a motion a while ago about administration bringing back a report on the future of the CCBCC Advisory Committee. I think the report is supposed to come to council. I was wondering if we can maybe have that coming back to us in the near future. I thought we may have had it here in March, but it may have been under the radar for March into April. So if we can have an update, and not necessarily tonight, but when we will have that CCBCC report administration coming back to council, please.
I see Ms. Winter popped up. Ms. Winter.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, through you to Councillor Daniluk. Actually, the report is going to be coming to the first April council meeting for that. So it is ready to come to council.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I look forward to it. Thank you.
Any further questions for admin from members of council? Are there members of council wishing to make a statement this evening? Okay, I'm sure we all saw the news this week about the COVID-19 restrictions, and I won't steal the CAO's thunder because I'm pretty sure it's going to be part of his report, but we all know we didn't move to step 3, so we will be in status quo mode for a little while longer. So anyway, I won't steal any more of the CAO's thunder. Hopefully he will bring us up to date on where the city's at with COVID and other issues. CAO?
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship, members of council. I'll try my video here until it messes up and then I'll shut it down. Sure, I'll just piggyback off of what you were talking about. The province did not go to stage 3 because the hospital stays are in fact increasing. They are below 300, although today they've reached 290. So that was 10 more than 24 hours ago. And that was the rationale for not going to step 3. While they're below 300, they're trending upwards. Beaumont, the last 24 hours, we had no additional cases and no additional recoveries, but we've had quite the string all week long, a couple 5s, 3 2s. So it's still alive and well, and we're sitting with 27 active cases in our city right now. Past 24 hours, province recorded 465 new cases. There were 3 additional, 7 more variant cases identified, which is now represents 18%. In the second week of February, that was 3%. If you recall, I briefed last time that places like Denmark went from 6% in the first week up to like 80% in 6 weeks. We're not on that steep of a curve, but we're certainly going in the wrong direction. There are currently, as I said, 290 people in hospital. That's 10 more than there were 24 hours ago. There's also 53 people in the ICU, and that's 5 more than 24 hours ago. With the rollout of the vaccine, a lot of those hospitalizations, the ages are getting younger and younger, which is a good news, bad news story. The good news is that they're being able to inoculate those in long-term care. And I think Dr. Hinshaw earlier this week had reported that there hadn't been a death in a long-term care in a week, I believe. So that was a good sign. Positivity rate is sitting at 6.6%, so pretty high. So we're not out of this. We've got to hang in there. A couple things more locally. We have signed a mutual aid agreement with the city of Leduc. It's now in place. It's specific being our 2 cities and outlines the command and control procedures and any cost matters and indemnification clauses if we are called to help each other. So that's a great regional news story. We've also changed our hours in municipal enforcement, and they've been now permanently extended. If you recall, during COVID and during 2020, we experimented with extended hours. So we now have full coverage from Monday from 0800 to 2000 hours, which is 8 o'clock at night, from 100 to 8 o'clock at night, Saturday and Sunday from 10 in the morning till 8 o'clock. So that's great coverage for our community. We're working in conjunction with the RCMP as well to keep our community safe. Last item was one I received just before this meeting from Fortis, and I'll send out the notice to you. They just announced today to us that they're working to complete the installation of what they call a distribution automation system in Beaumont. It's expected to be completed by August 2021. What this does provide increased reliability and shorter power interruptions for customers. So the tech, without being told to do so, will, when an outage occurs, it'll immediately zero in on the affected customers by automatically isolating the faulted section of electricity, working around it, which quickly restores to as many customers as possible. And that's done automatically. Some cases are now able to restore power in seconds or minutes in situations that would have taken hours in the past. They're doing this in a couple of other communities, 3 other ones in 2021. One is Whitecourt, one is Black Falls, and one is Innisfil. So I'm happy to announce that we're going to have that technology in our city. And that's what I had for an update. Thank you very much.
Cool. I think we got most of that. So we'll just go on unless council has, because I missed a lot of that Fortis thing. So does council want a quick recap on the Fortis? Or maybe we'll send it out by email, but appreciate it.
I will send out the Fortis email momentarily, then you can read it yourself. Sorry.
And no worries. Member of council have notices of motion this evening. Councillor Stout.
I don't have a notice of motion. I'm sorry. I just want to ask a question. Mike, when you were discussing the extended hours of municipal enforcement, I cut out completely. It was very garbled. Could you just reiterate what the new extended hours are, please?
Sure. The hours are now Mondays to 8 o'clock in the evening, Tuesdays to Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock in the evening. Are you not getting this? Any of it?
No. Email might be better.
I will send an email.
I'm sorry.
Technology is wonderful right up until it fails. All right. So moving on to item 13, notices of motion. Member of council have notice of motion they wish to make this evening? Okay, if not, I do have one. I would move that, notice of motion that I would move that council establish a small business support grant to allow our local businesses to access professional expertise, such as but not limited to accountants, to assist them in accessing the federal and provincial support programs. Grant to be a maximum one-time grant of $500 per business. Overall funding envelope to be $20,000 plus $3,000 in cost to administer the grant funded from reserves. Grant to be administered by the Leduc-Wetaskiwin Chamber of Commerce. All right. That brings us to item 14, closed session. Is there a member of council willing to move us into closed session? Councillor Stout.
I move we go into closed session, Your Worship.
All in favor? That carries unanimously, and so we'll just wait till we're off of YouTube and then just a note to members of the public, there are no business items arising from item 14A, the closed session economic development opportunity updates. And so that brings us to the end of our meeting. Once again, thank you very much to council and administration for your time this evening. Lots of hard work is going in. Lots of things are moving at work factor 6 as we move forward, getting closer to the summer. So while I appreciate that, we will get a bit of an extended break as we've got an extra Tuesday in the month of March. So I will see you all in 3 weeks for our next regularly scheduled council meeting. Tonight's council meeting is adjourned.